All right, please be seated. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, come on, prepared for your closing argument. All right, please proceed.
Everybody here is a bad guy except Jordan Henning. They've spent, my God, 3 hours this morning telling you what a bad guy Jimmy Watts is, what a bad guy Jason is. They've spent days telling you what a bad person Ashley is. Sergeant First Class Ashley Henning. A soldier, a mother, a woman who said, "I love you." All of the things he said about her. There's not a witness to bring forth to rebut the heinous accusations from that man. The only person who can rebut anything he said about her is dead at his hands. There is no evidence to support anything he said. Where did this all start? I told you that a storm went through that Henning house. It was Storm Jordan. How did it start? It started with him. It's a lie. Recognize it for what it is. Folks, that's exactly what I'm asking you to do. It's a lie. Everything he said is a lie. And I don't think honestly, I don't need to get too worked up. You all are more than smart enough to recognize everything he said from that stand, to be able to pick apart his contradictions. I could stand here, I could run on 2 more weeks picking apart everything he said that was contradictory, flat, false. They want to tell you they want you to see this. They want you to hear his story about it. I don't know what you make of that. She threw a remote control at him. Well, we don't get to hear her part of why. What is that? His swollen lip. I love this one. I love this photo. She bit his hand. She bit the palm of his hand. Let me say that again. She bit the palm of his hand. How do you bite the palm of someone's hand? Where does your hand have to be? Right up in their face. What was he doing, if that's what this is? What was he doing to put the palm of his hand in her mouth? He is going to tell you anything he can to try and get that EED instruction. It's not intentional murder, it's extreme emotional distress. But nothing in his story rings true. Hardly anything at all in his story even sounds remotely reasonable. He's the victim of physical and emotional abuse for years. I'll tell you the truth, I have no doubt He probably is a model soldier. You heard Sergeant Major Glass admit, though, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You might know what a man is like at work. He might be an exemplary soldier, but you don't know what his home life is like. And you mean to tell me, drip, 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 he suffered under this unbearable mental and physical abuse for years, and it hasn't affected his job performance? He's still a model soldier. He's able to perform at the highest level. We make him the driver for the general. And yet he has suffered, and he has been so horribly affected. What's more reasonable? Who are the real victims in that home? Given what you saw in that video, isn't it more reasonable that she put up with the abuse behind closed doors for years? What's more reasonable is that maybe it went back and forth. Maybe she pushed back occasionally. What happened on this night, all these bad guys out here who wanted to come testify, they actually saw it. What was different about this night? There was a witness. People with no reason to keep it hidden. People he couldn't intimidate into being quiet. People who were going to call 911. He couldn't control them. And he knew it was over. He knew he went too far. What was over? His career? Yeah, his career. More than that. You heard this 20-minute video. Everything is me, me, me. You did this to me. What's really over? That image of the perfect soldier. That's what's over. His reputation. That evil that he's kept hidden from everybody for all these years. That's what's over. That's what's got him so worked up. Isn't it more likely she has been the victim? And who knows who else in that home has been the victim? More likely that he's harbored these resentments for years. He told you it was great at first, right? But it's all about me. It's all about me, me, me. And when she starts to do something that doesn't please me, I start to have resentments. I start to have anger. And for years, he gave in to those. He indulged in those thoughts. He indulged in those thoughts. She's not pleasing me. It's about me. And he nurtured those feelings, and that sprouted into resentment, and it grew into hatred. When he pulled that trigger, he had been harboring hatred in his heart for years. He's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Soldier Jordan and Family Man Jordan. Dr. Jekyll, the respected physician, the man known for his kindness and generosity, known for being good at his work as a physician. And he begins taking this potion that unlocks his dark side. A model soldier who begins indulging in those feelings of resentment. What happens with Dr. Jekyll as he keeps indulging in that potion, right? We all know this story. Eventually it overtakes him and he becomes that evil. He indulged in those feelings for years, and he pulled that trigger out of hatred. And you know, I love old movies, I love old books. I actually just read this book not long ago. In the 1968 version of this movie, Jack Palance is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And in the closing scene, his friend, Mr. Utterson, is confronting him as is confronting Mr. Hyde with a gun because he knows this has to end. Mr. Hyde tells him, if you kill me, you're killing Dr. Jekyll. Mr. Utterson says, you don't understand. It's Dr. Jekyll who is responsible. Whatever rage he worked himself into, whatever hatred he had for her, he's responsible. He's the one who followed through on those emotions, who followed through on those thoughts. He surrendered to that baser self and became evil. And now he's using the same defense so many abusers try to use. Blame the victim. It's her fault. She made me do it. And you heard him say it, right? Right before he killed her. What about this idea that he just reacted based on his training? It's a reflex. You watch that video for 20 minutes, that's not a reflex. This wasn't an ambush. He wasn't triggered. There was nothing like an IED going off, a mortar round coming in. There was no impelling force overcoming his judgment, like you'll read in your instructions. He is reacting in a chaotic environment. I will give you that. It is a dangerous environment. And who made it that way? He's not reacting, he's being proactive in a chaotic environment that he created. He is using his judgment. He's trying to manage the situation. He's trying to move the pieces around the battlefield that he created out of that home. Tries to get rid of Jimmy Watts because he became a witness. Get out of here. It's none of your business. Get off my property. He realizes 911 has been called. Ashley, call him, tell him. Switch from getting the witness out of here to getting control of the witness. He changes tactics again and again. Finally, when he realizes there's nothing more he can do. He realizes the veil is gone. His career is over. He's still in control. He's going to control how it ends. One way or another, he's in control. He doesn't just have a reflex and shoot her. He doesn't just react out of muscle memory and shoot her. He has a countdown. He knows the response time. And after he starts his countdown, then he tells them somebody's going to die. This is going to end in death. There is no trigger. There's no drip, drip, drip. That's nonsense. Has to be reasonable. So let's look at this whole evening. What's the spark that set off that hellfire that ran through this house? You heard him testify. You saw the video that covered essentially from the moment visitors left until Ashley Henning died. We waved goodbye in the driveway, came in the garage, and that's about where the video picks up. That was his testimony. What's the first thing you see? Came in the kitchen, and she dared to defy his order. You know, he said it. You're going to shower. You're going to bed. You're going to let me serve you. It's not what can I do to help. How can I help you relax? Can I do anything for you? You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Yeah, sure, he's a willing servant, as long as it's what he's willing to do. What did she really need help with? I got the dishes. This helps me relax. Clean up your meat. He huffs off into the basement, locks the door. You can hear it. I make the decisions around here. I decide what I'm going to do to help and not help. I mean, you watch the video, and then you hear him testify about it. She was screaming at me. And I'm thinking, my God, what did I do now? Because it's all about him. What did I do now? Jordan, did you put the hose on the slip and slide? Mister, I want to serve you. He's not willing to do that. He's not willing to go outside and take the hose off the slip and slide. I told you to go to bed. I told you to go shower, and you're dismissing me. So watch how he responds. How does he respond? Jordan, help me with the slip and slide. Comes storming up there. What's the first thing he says? He lied. The hell does that have to do with anything? You're an 8-year-old kid. That's really where all this starts. Really, that's where all this starts. He's pissed off some poor little 8-year-old kid couldn't undo the slip and slide that he put together. Ashley couldn't do it either. She had to ask for help. I'll use Roger's word, the cockamamie story that he came up with up here on the stand. A lie is a lie. Why did you say that? That's her rule. That's her rule, and she makes the kids do push-ups if they lie. Do you think he gives a damn about her rule? Did he get so worked up to enforce her rule? No. It's just one more time today he's been defied. One more time today he wasn't the center of attention. Drip, drip, drip. Defied, ignored, not the center of attention, not paid attention to enough, not allowed to do the things he wants to do to help. Drip, drip, drip. You know, we've got everybody these folks who knew him for a year, folks who knew him for 10 months, come in here and talk about what a great soldier he is. They never saw anything like that from him. They never saw him behave that way. You even got neighbors. Never saw him behave that way. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's his image. It's his public image. And it's what he does behind closed doors at home. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing. And his response is to yell at Carter, the 8-year-old kid upstairs in the shower. Carter, get down here right now. Fix this slip and slide shit. And he's standing over there at the stairway waiting. Get out of that shower. Can't finish your shower. You're an 8-year-old kid, can't finish your shower. Get down here right now. Storms out into the yard with him. No, neighbors never saw him do anything like that. Nothing has even started yet. That's how he is. What about Jimmy attacked me? What did he say? What did he say? He said, I wasn't over top of her. He said I wasn't over top of her. Well, that's BS. It's not like I was hitting her. What'd you hear on the video? You could hear her. I can't breathe. You hear her say, I can't breathe, and then you hear Jimmy, get off of her. But you know what? From my perspective, I'm the center of the universe. She started this, and he's attacking me. Let me tell you something, folks. That is not what that means in your jury instructions when it says from the defendant's perspective. We'll talk about that. And here's where it gets real. Jimmy's yelling, stop, get off of her. No, Jimmy, run, call the cops. What's his response to that? He says Jimmy attacked him, and that's why he put Jimmy in a headlock. I don't know, it's not on camera. Puts him in a headlock until he submits, then he lets him up. Yelling at him to get out of there. none of his business. Jimmy told me he was going to get his effing gun. Didn't hear that anywhere in the video. But what did he say he did in response? Jimmy told me he was going to get his gun. I was scared. I ran as fast as I could, got my gun out of the bedroom and ran back down. I mean, my God, he was in the bedroom for 5 minutes yelling at Ashley. You know, and he couldn't even resist this stupid lie. I didn't know if I was going to even do this. Got an air gun, don't worry. There's not even any air in it. He is such a pathological liar. You're listening to it on the video. Jim says, "What's that sound?" while he's in the bedroom with Ashley getting his gun. You hear this sound on the video. Everybody remember that? How many times did you hear that throughout this night? You heard it at least once in the bedroom, several times outside. What's he doing? Why are you hearing that? Call him, Ashley. Call him. Tell him. When I was a police officer, we carried shotguns for the purpose of getting out in a crowd situation where you need to catch people's attention. That sound of a gun cocking is intimidating. That was his purpose, to intimidate her. But he's such a pathological liar, he has to tell Jim, you know, that wasn't me charging the weapon, that was me putting the magazine in. One click, 2 clicks. He can't help himself. A lie is a lie. And that's all he does. Jimmy went and got a gun. I ran right back down. For that matter, some guy in my yard out front, I just told to get off my property, says I'm going to get a gun. My response is to go grab my gun and run back out and wait for him to come back. Maybe I want to call 911. But we can't have police involved here. And then Jimmy had a gun. I saw it. The only evidence in this trial at all that Jimmy had a gun is his lying mouth. No one there saw Jimmy with a gun. Jimmy said he didn't have a gun. Jason said Jimmy didn't have a gun. Where did Jimmy go when he left the backyard? He went out in the street. You know what he got? He got something a hell of a lot more dangerous than a gun to Jordan Henning. He got on the phone with 911. There's a scene in that video while they're struggling in the beginning over that slip and slide. A damn slip and slide. He was trying to tell Mr. Eggert that that little white blur you see sit down in the chair on the corner of the video is him sitting down in the chair. And that's when she grabbed him around the balls, is what he said. And she drug him 10 feet across the yard. Well, she must have been some kind of super soldier to drag a man that way across the yard 10 feet. You heard him talk about he reached out and tried to grab the railing, the banister. How did Carter end up between the two of you? It was an accident. I didn't mean to grab him. I was grabbing the banister, and I grabbed Carter. You mean to tell me she's dragging him and Carter 10 feet across the yard in that manner? And he never cries out in pain. You hear all kinds of things on that video, things crashing, this, that, and the other. I think I might let out a screech. Jim went back and went through that part of the video. I don't think he expected that. I don't think he expected to be held accountable. I hadn't thought of it this way. Yeah, I don't think he expected to be held to account. I think he thought he was going to get away with this. I don't think he thought he was going to have to explain every time he said let go. And Jim made him explain it. And you know what he did? He slipped up and told the truth. Let go. What'd you mean let go? That was the slip and slide. That was the tools. That was Carter. Let go, let go, let go. Jim's going through the let goes with him. What's the one thing he never said he meant when he said let go? Lie after lie after lie. Let's look at extreme emotional disturbance. You don't have your jury sheets, your instructions. I don't even know what page it's on, and it doesn't matter. Self-defense. That doesn't even bear looking at. Self-defense. We know what self-defense is. In the instruction, we'll say that he was in fear of, roughly speaking, imminent threat of bodily harm or something like that from Ashley Henning. She was sitting in a chair, and he was lecturing her for 5 minutes and announcing what he was going to do. The idea that she was posed an imminent threat of any kind to him at that moment, we don't even need to look at the instruction. You know why he gets the instruction? He uttered, there's no evidence that she's a threat to him whatsoever, but his words. He uttered the words, I feared for my life. Let's look at the extreme emotional disturbance on page 2. It is a temporary state of mind so enraged, inflamed, or disturbed as to overcome one's judgment. It's not just anger. It's not extreme anger. It's not being irate. It is so disturbed that it overcomes one's judgment. Doesn't say good judgment, doesn't say bad judgment. Overcomes one's judgment. And to cause one to act uncontrollably from the impelling force of the extreme emotional disturbance, rather than from evil or malicious purposes. If what you saw on that video is not evil and malicious, I don't know what is. The way he acted from the very moment they walked in that kitchen until the moment he runs out the front door, and a few minutes later when you hear the door click locked as he hit the lock thing on his phone driving away apparently. If that is not evil or malicious purpose, nothing is. You can stop right there. You don't need to read anything else. What he did was from evil and malicious purposes. EED does not apply. He did not, the doctors, the lawyers, the courts, the judges, everybody uses the word trigger. It's not in there. It's a convenient way for us to describe what is meant by this. Trigger is not the law. It is a verbal shorthand for us to explain what we mean. That's the uncontrollable impelling force. That's the event that caused this state of mind. That's what we mean. That's what we're talking about when we say that word. It's not in your jury instructions. But that so-called trigger, when you go on, that's the last couple of lines. Reasonable explanation or excuse, therefore. One of the doctors gave the example, the classic example of the man walks in on his wife, shoots one or both. That is a classic instant trigger. It is so emotionally overcoming, harmful, disturbing, that he reacts. And we have recognized over the years that it doesn't have to be just like that. It can be something that goes into a longer period of time, but it can't have an interruption. It has to be constant. And it has to be reasonable, a reasonable explanation. The reasonableness of which is to be determined from the viewpoint of a person in the defendant's situation. Not his viewpoint, the viewpoint of somebody in his situation under the circumstances as he believed them to be. Well, how do you know what he believed? How do you know what he actually believed? Because you can't believe a word he says. What happens, Jim asked, happens when a young soldier gets in trouble for domestic violence? This model soldier who served our country well, apparently for 11 years, knows the answer. You face UCMJ punishment and you'll be discharged from the military. Uniform Code of Military Justice. Our military is a cross-section of our nation. good and bad. They signed a piece of paper pledging to give their lives. Something most people won't do, but they are still a cross-section of our community. They have undertaken, in my mind, the most noble profession. But they are still good and bad. And he knows he's a dedicated soldier. He knows it's over. Like we talked about, his career, his reputation, his image. Those cops come, my life is over. Let's talk about in that instruction. You don't have to flip to it. As to overcome one's judgment and to cause one to act uncontrollably. Yeah, he's right. We're going to spend a minute on control. Judgment and control. First thing we know is it's all about his control. He ain't about to let loose of control. Starts with you go to bed, and it moves on to Carter's going to do it. And then it moves on to Carter getting wrapped up in the middle of this, whatever it is that he's doing to Carter, whatever it is that he's doing to Ashley, that you hear Carter screaming. You hear Ashley saying, let go of him. You hear a lot, and you hear whatever he's doing has terrified Carter so much that he runs screaming from that house. And nothing has happened yet. No trigger. Now, Carter's made it next door to call for help. Jimmy comes over, and we have a witness. Now we have a problem. We've talked about this. Now we have a problem. Now he has to take charge, really take charge. He's got to get that witness out of here. He's got to get Jimmy out of here. Tackle him, put him in a headlock, intimidate him, tell him to get off his property, stay out of it. But Ashley really done it. She yelled, Jimmy, run, call the police. Now we've got to change tactics. You hear him ranting. You escalated this. You involved the neighbors. Now just getting Jimmy out of there, telling him to stay out of it's not enough. Now he's got to intimidate everybody. Get him to shut up. He's yelling at her. You escalated this. You involved the neighbors. He's got his gun in the bedroom, waving it around. Call him, tell him. Trying to get them to, obviously, get them to call the police, tell them everything's okay, disregard, 10-8. You know what hasn't happened yet? He hasn't snapped. He just snapped. All this stress, all this going on, he hasn't snapped. He's got a gun in his hand, hasn't snapped. Trying to get Ashley to call Jimmy's not working. A few minutes in the bedroom, trying that approach, didn't work. Now, Ashley runs downstairs, trying to put distance. Now he runs downstairs. Now he runs outside. Now he's yelling at the neighbors. The neighbor he's terrified of that has a gun, he's yelling, "Get back here." I'm not effing around with you guys. Get over here. Can't get him on the phone to intimidate him. Got to get him here in person to do it. And again, really, where is Jimmy at this point? Not threatening him with a gun. No, he's threatening him with that phone out there on the street. Comes down and he's yelling. Jimmy's not there, and he's telling Ashley, "You better go find him." And you know what hasn't happened yet? He hasn't snapped. But he does know time is running out. He's been working a plan to fix this, and his time is running out. His countdown starts. His plan isn't working. They're not doing what I want. I don't have much time. I got to make another decision soon. How much time do I have? Tells you what he's going to do. I know how phone calls go, he screams. I know the Hardin County response time, and he starts his 30 countdown. Gets down to 17, and he makes a decision. "This is ending in death," he yells. But what doesn't he do? Doesn't snap. Because made the decision, this is ending in death, but not until I say so, not until I'm ready. Not going to tell you who I'm killing yet. Maybe he hasn't made that decision yet. And what's Ashley doing? What has she been doing this whole damn time? Please stop. Why are you doing this over and over and over? You know what I saw in that video? The single most aggressive thing I saw in that video from Ashley Henning. When she yells down for him to come up, she's over here, she's yelling, "Jordan, help with slip and slide." He comes up and mouths off whatever it is that he said. And she walks over around the corner and she says, "Oh my God." That utterance of frustration is the most aggressive thing you will see out of Ashley Henning that entire night. So he goes on, and as she's sitting there, hasn't snapped yet. No, he's got to explain why. He's got to finally make her listen. Listen to me, listen to me. You heard as in the beginning, out there with the slip and slide in the beginning. What's this all about? She's not listening to him. When you hear her, "I can't breathe," what's he saying? Listen to me. Now, she's in that chair, and he's there with that gun, and by God, she's gonna listen. He blames her. "You pushed me here. I am such a gentle man. He tells her, this is the way it's gonna go. What's he do? He still doesn't snap. She says, if you're really a man, just put down the gun. In the first moment in 15 of that 20, 25 minutes, that she raises her voice above a whisper, and you can hear her voice shaking. If you're really a man, put down that gun. And guess what he does? He still doesn't snap. That's what he says. This is how it goes. He says, almost 45 seconds later, you fucking blamed me. And he pulls the trigger. If anything, he is in complete control of his judgment. There's nothing reasonable about it. But there is a method to his actions. He is in full control. There is a sick, logical flow to what he's doing. There's a decision tree there to what he's doing. He gets out, one more. Gets out on that traffic stop. He's like a mile from the house. Gets pulled over right away. What's he do? He pulls over right away. Deputy Shumate testified. Got him out of the car. Felony stop. Driver, put your hand out the door. Open the door from the outside. Driver, get out of the vehicle. Driver, raise your hands. Driver, raise up your shirt. Driver, walk backwards to me. Driver, get down on your knees. Gets him in handcuffs. He complies with all that. Gets him in handcuffs. He's totally compliant. And he tells Deputy Shumate that he threw a gun. He threw a gun because I didn't want you to think I was a threat. He makes another decision. His tactic has changed to manipulation now. And you see the video when they come back with the EMT to check on him. He's banging his head on the back of the shield, the cage. He's crying, saying, shoot me. He didn't want to die. He threw the gun so we'd know he wasn't a threat. He came up with somebody else who had a gun, somebody who could be a threat to him, somebody who couldn't intimidate. Don't want to be a threat. You can't find EED if there's malicious purpose. I've said over and over, I think at this point, if this isn't malicious, I don't know what is, but what are his words? The instant they left, you turned on me. That's why he did it. Just like I said you would, you turned on me. He testified up here, he was upset at her for overriding me. She overruled me on everything. This is all about his ego. His whiny little ego. You elevated this to neighbors. Talking about the neighbors testifying or getting involved. She's turning the people who are my friends against me. Look what you did. You took it out on me. You blamed it on me. It's because of you. You pushed me to this point. And he remembers all kinds of good details in this story that help him. When he's up here talking to Jim, he can't even remember the things that should be easy to explain. You don't have to remember it. What was the problem with her mom? You've been married to her for 7 years. You don't know what the problem with her mom is? You can't tell me right now? Blamed it on me. Blamed what on you? What's she always blaming on you? Been married 7 years. It's been a hellscape. Can't think of anything that she would always blame me for. I can't believe I need to go on. Malicious purpose to protect his little ego. Motive. The veil is gone. Everyone will finally know who he really is. My career is over. This is ending in death tonight. You got the neighbors involved. You pushed me to this. He thinks it's the phone call that's ending his life. By God, she's the one that yelled call. He's going to end hers too. Vengeance. Reasonable. We talked about that. What's missing? You never hear him crying out in pain. All that ranting and raving about you blame me, all of that. I never heard, you'll never hit me again. I never heard, you grabbed me there for the last time, nothing like that. Never heard him yell, Jimmy, put the gun down. He supposedly sees Jimmy with a gun. He's supposedly so afraid. That's what's really going on. He's terrified of Jimmy with a gun. Now he's got a gun. He can intimidate Jimmy. Maybe he could say, Jimmy, put your gun down, if that's what he's really worried about. Jimmy better not come back over here if he's really worried about what Jimmy's going to do with the gun. I'm going to leave you with this. We have a tradition in this country that we do not leave a soldier on the battlefield. Don't leave them laying out there to die. That is exactly what he did. He created a battlefield out of that house. He shot her 2 bullets through her heart, and he left her on that battlefield to die. He is guilty of murder and nothing less.